the thing. If you are getting upset about something, it's usually because you have some sort of irrational thought in your mind, right? Which is what happens all the time when I'm catching the train, right? Those guys getting angry, they're always being angry in irrational ways. You see it. Like, they cancel the train. They're like, unbelievable. Oh, it's the third time this week. I can't believe it. You're like, what? You can't believe it, and it's the third time this week. How easily surprised is this guy?
According to Stoic philosophy, when we do become upset, when we become angry, when we become fearful, when we get into conflict with other people, when we start to get anxious, all these other negative emotional reactions that we can have, what is going on is some sort of process of irrational thought. In fact, the Stoics went so far as to say that emotions themselves were kinds of thoughts and were generally irrational thoughts. So what makes them irrational? What makes those sorts of responses irrational? Because when we engage in them, they certainly seem rational to us at the time. If we want to get quite technical about this, and the Stoics in fact did that because they thought it served some useful purpose, then what we can say is that for any set of thoughts or emotions that we have, any desires, any aversions that are in the last analysis or even right on their face irrational, what's going on is something like a conflict. Epictetus actually uses the term mache, which means originally something like battle or fight, and gets translated as contradiction. And it's not really contradiction in the sense that we're used to thinking of that, like logical contradiction. Think of it more like how people contradict each other. They speak against each other. This doesn't, of course, rule out logical contradiction, but it expands the notion a little bit more to something that we can relate to much more easily. So when Michael gives this example of the fellow who is upset about the train and says he cannot believe that this is happening when it's happened 3 times that week, what's going on there is there's some sort of mache, some sort of contradiction, some sort of conflict between the various things that this guy has up in his head. The gears are not meshing properly, you might say, and they're producing a lot of smoke and grinding as a result. One of the goals for the practicing Stoic is to eventually arrive at a condition where all the things that you're thinking, even the things you're thinking implicitly, jibe with each other. They actually don't run into each other and conflict with each other and rule each other out and keep putting you in a position where somehow you have to have a number of contradictory thoughts in your head or at least in your heart at the same time. And Michael points out something really interesting here, which is that if you have the right kinds of thoughts, if you have the thoughts that are, you might call the seeds of rationality, or the thoughts around which other thoughts will gel in a sort of rational structure, you're not going to be able to get very upset about them. Notice the ones that he picks. These are actually what the Stoics used to call dogmata. The singular for that is dogma, and this means something that ought to be believed, something that we ought to think and have in our back pocket, so to speak, to be able to whip out when we run into trying or challenging circumstances. These dogmata are the sorts of things that you'll find in books of Stoic philosophy. And they're not recommending them as just something that you should repeat and then, sort of brainwash yourself into thinking. The reason why they offer these to us is because these are thoughts that can be indeed compatible with each other. And gradually, if we orient ourselves around these, if we keep reminding ourselves when we need to be reminded, then we'll find that the other thoughts, and then because of that, the emotions that we experience in our lives will make sense, will intersect and interact with and turn into a rational structure along with these Stoic dogmata.